Hello, I am Denise Harris. I am the youth director at Yardley United Methodist Church. A few weeks ago, we had several parent meetings where we focused on mental health for teens and young adults. In those meetings, we talked about the definition of mental health, some warning signs to look for if teens or young people are struggling. And then we talked about how to continue the conversation at home, at work, at church, at school, to just continue to normalize any sort of conversation about mental health. And so what I thought I would do is record this because I know there were some people that wanted to be here but couldn't. So I'm recording this for you so that you can watch this. But if you are watching, I would love to talk to you after you're done. So if you have any questions or just want to talk more about this, please email me and let's continue this conversation. And so here's the presentation that I shared at our parent meeting for youth and young adult mental health. So the first thing we want to do is define mental health. Mental health can be defined as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own capabilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and can contribute into their community. Now, we all go through severe ups and downs in life. Things come at us and we respond. And so there are very, very normal times where these four things are not visible in our lives because we are grieving or struggling. That is not necessarily defined as a mental health challenge. A mental health challenge is when there is a major change in a person's thinking, feeling, or behavior. It is also defined as an interference in the person's ability to live their life. And the interference does not go away quickly, and it lasts longer than typical emotions or reactions should or are expected to. Again, we all go through times of great stress and grief and pain. And so not all of those times that interrupt our normal lives, not all those times are defined as mental health challenges, but there are certainly times where the normal sense of grieving and pain and healing lasts longer, and that would be defined as a mental health challenge. So the question posed to all of us is an interesting statistic. The question is, how many young people in the United States will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetime? 1 in 50, 1 in 20, 1 in 5. This shocked me to find out that the answer is 1 in 5. In the United States, 1 in 5 young people will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetime. And for this reason, early intervention is important. For the adults and leaders and parents around these young people, it is vitally important that we understand mental health and are able to intervene if we see the warning signs for a mental health challenge. It's also very important that we normalize the conversation. The more that we can talk about this, the more that we can refer to mental health in ways of struggling and in healthy ways, the more that it gives teens and young people the words they need to know when something isn't right with them. And so early intervention, and continuous conversations that support mental health and mental health wording is very important in the home. So real quick, I just wanted to go through very quickly what's happening in the brain of our young people at certain ages. In our 11 to 12-year-olds, they are experiencing major changes in their brain. And what's happening is their brain is taking away the things that they just don't need anymore to make room for the growth that's going to be happening in the next few years. And so our 11 to 12-year-olds, for a lot of them, you will probably see them slip back into into maybe even like toddlers. A lot of parents will see this, and a lot of teachers, anybody that works with young people will see this in our 11 to 12-ish year olds. You tell them to do something, or they walk out of the house without some basic thing like a coat or their lunches. It seems like they're forgetting everything and losing their minds. And a lot of times parents and leaders and teachers are like, what is wrong with you? The reality is there's nothing wrong with them. This is completely normal. Their brain is shifting and getting ready for the growth that is going to happen. And in order to do that, they struggle with some of the basic skills that they have learned in their 11 to 12 years. So some things that can help the adults and the parents in an 11 to 12-year-old in their lives. First, help them build memory cues around daily routines. And understand that they will forget things. Help them figure out how to remember them. Share helpful tips with them about task management, and give them the opportunity to make sound decision-making now. Help them to see the viewpoints, the pros and the cons, and help them to make decisions based on information that they have. And again, this is a difficult time for our 11 and 12-year-olds. So just remain caring and loving and understand. And we've all been there, and just give them the support that they need to help them understand what they're going through. Our 13 to 14-year-olds are going through similar changes as our 11 and 12-year-olds, but there are some key changes. The first is they are maturing in their response to stress and emotions. And so this is where we start to see slamming of doors, breaking out into crying fits for what seems to be no reason, but in reality, there is a reason, because their brains are shifting and growing, and their stress responses are firing on all cylinders. At this time in a teen's life, they become very sensitive to peers' opinions and will react strongly to them. And so while a parent is still the number one influence in a teen's life, peers' opinions impact the teens and their behavior and their actions. They begin to ask the question, where do I belong? Because in their whole lives, their parents or their family base has been their identity. And now things are changing, and their peers are becoming their identity or part of their identity. And so the natural question is, where do I belong? And so it's important at this time that we help teens learn to choose friends based on shared interest, not popularity or anything negative, but to value friendships and to learn how to work through the ups and downs of friendships. Ages 15 to 16-year-olds are they are dealing with similar, their brain receptors are blossoming. They are amplified in all of their responses. And 15 to 16-year-olds, their lack of impulse control is key in their growth development. It is important at this time that they continue to learn to make good friends, to be surrounded by people that help them make good decisions, because they are struggling with that. And it is never too late at this point, before or after, to have supportive parents to impact their time in their lives. And then our young adults. I find this very interesting. The fact is that we know very little, or we're learning more about the young adult brain. We used to think that you were an adult at 18, but the reality is that that's closer to 25 and possibly even 30 before our brains are fully developed and are in this adult mode. And so during this time, really from the age of 17 to 30, there are some key things that adults and parents can do in the lives of these young people. And the first is to highlight their talents and skills. They're entering into a world that they are unfamiliar with, a time in life that is absolutely terrifying, when everything in their lives is going to change, whether they're going to school or work. No matter what they're doing, everything that they've known is changing. And so to affirm these young people, to tell them who they are, remind them about their skills and their talents, and to normalize new experiences. Everything is new, and we've all been there. And so to remind them that what they're feeling is completely normal. It's a struggle, but they will get through it. And again, it is never, ever, ever too late for supportive parents to make a difference in the lives of these young people. So next, I want to talk about the Algae Action Plan. This is put together by the National Council of Behavioral Health. They use this Algae Action Plan as a first aid for mental health. And so the training that I went to, they went through this Algae Action Plan. And what they said was, this is how you assess if a young person is struggling with a mental health challenge. However, the more that I listened to this, I fully, well, first of all, I love this. And second, I believe that as a parent, this is an important part of understanding mental health. And so we're going to go through this letter by letter. So the action plan, A, it stands for assess the risk of suicide or harm. This is a very difficult thing to do. If you're talking about extreme changes in a teenager and a young person's life, this is something that could come up. If you've noticed a change in their behavior, if you've noticed that they are dismissing themselves from their friends, if you have noticed a change in their interests or lack of interests, there might be reason for you to pay attention and ask and assess the risk of suicide or harm. In order to do that, the very first thing that you need to do is create a safe space for them for you to assess the risk. So never, ever, ever ask them at the dinner table full of family members if they are struggling with thoughts of suicide. Create a safe space away from everybody else, where you can ask them and tell them what you've noticed and ask them if they believe that they are at a risk or if this is something that they are concerned about. And when we ask and approach a young person with these questions, it is important to ask questions and encourage more information. So below, there are a couple of questions here. I'm going to, in our meeting, I asked everybody to kind of share some of these things, but as you're looking at these 12 questions, the question is, what responses or approaches are helpful and which ones are not helpful? And we all know from our lives and our own interaction with people that there are questions and approaches that encourage us to talk more, and there are approaches that encourage us to shut down immediately. And so if you are noticing that a young person is struggling, some of the questions that you might want to ask them is something bothering you? I've noticed that that you haven't been joining your friends for lunch. Are you doing okay? If something is bothering you, do you want to talk about it? I'm concerned about you. I've noticed this in you, and I want to know more about what you're feeling and thinking. Also, in our meeting and the discussion, it was important for us together to practice the question and discuss the question about suicide. It is a widely understood or believed notion that if you ask a young person about suicide, it will put their idea in their head. So if you ask the question, If they weren't thinking about suicide, they are now. That is a commonly held fear, and that is absolutely incorrect. If a young person is thinking about suicide, you asking the question doesn't change it. If a young person is not thinking about suicide, you asking the question does not change that. And so, in order to get to the heart of what is going on and to fully understand what's going on in this young person's life, the question has to be asked. And I would encourage you to not ask the question, are you thinking about committing suicide? I would encourage you to say it and name it for what it is, and ask the young person, are you thinking of killing yourself? There is a reality in that question that they may not have thought of. There is a reality in that question that they need to understand, that you understand the depth of the question you were asking them. And so when we were in our group meeting, I asked everyone to recite the question together, and I'm going to ask you to do that now too. So on the count of 3, please join me in asking the question, are you thinking of killing yourself? 1, 2, 3. Are you thinking of killing yourself? That question can invoke a lot of fear, a lot of emotion. And you are absolutely right to be afraid of that question, to be afraid of the answer, and to feel so uncomfortable even asking that question of anyone, whether you know them or whether they are in your family. However, that question is vitally important to assessing the risk and to understanding the struggle that this young person is going through. And so I encourage you on your own time to continue to practice that question. You never know when you'll need it. And it is an important tool to be able to ask that question. Are you thinking of killing yourself? The next letter in the Algae action plan is listen non-judgmentally. To listen non-judgmentally means that you are not minimizing their feelings. No matter what they share with you, you are understanding that this is what they're sharing is bringing them pain and a struggle. The other tool to listening non-judgmentally is to be physically present, to make eye contact if possible, to not have your phone or other distractions around you, which again is the important part of getting to a place that is safe and alone as best as you can to have these conversations. So the question that I asked within the group was, what are some of the verbal or nonverbal cues that demonstrate non-judgmental listening? And so I encourage you now to think of some of those. What are some verbal or nonverbal cues that you have seen people use on you when they are listening non-judgmentally? The next letter in our Algae action plan is give, and it's to give reassurance and information. To give reassurance is not to give advice. To give reassurance is a statement or an action that can help remove this person's fear. This young person or this person has shared with you something that is wrapped in pain and struggle for them, no matter what it is, whether it be a struggle with a friend or whether it be overpowering depression that they can't get through. No matter what they are sharing with you, it is wrapped in fear. Saying things out loud, especially to a parent, is a difficult thing for young people to do. And so do whatever you can to help remove their fear, to let them know that you are walking them through this. You are not judging them. You are caring for them, and you're walking through in this in this time. And again, it's important that they know that they are not alone. In listening non-judgmentally and giving a reassurance, all of that comes with caring and assuring them that they are not alone in this time. And then an important reminder for all of us is that for the majority of us, we are not a therapist. And they don't need you to be one. We have access to professionals that can help when and if needed, but you are not the therapist. You are someone that can help them get to that next step if needed. So you don't have to have any answers. You just need to listen, care, remove their fear, and remind them that they are not alone and that you are with them. The first E is encourage appropriate professional help. So there are a few resources here on this slide that I would encourage you to write down if you don't have them already. I would also encourage you to have them accessible for any time that you need them. Put them in your wallet, put them on the fridge, have them accessible so that when a crisis comes up, you can get to them. The one that I want to highlight, well, there's two I want to highlight. The first one is 211 or 211.org. That is a resource place for people trying to get professional help. If someone comes to you and says that they are struggling with depression, if your child or young adult comes to you and says that they're struggling with depression or anything else, and they say that they want to see a professional, a therapist, it can be very difficult to find somebody, taking into account location, insurance, and everything else that comes into making these types of decisions. 211 can help you with all of those. They can get you the resources that you need to find the person that is right to help your young person or you. The other one I want to highlight is National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI is a resource that is valuable for all of us. It is free group therapy, resource connection, and so much more. NAMI of Bucks County is our local National Alliance on Mental Illness. They are based in Warminster, which isn't far from Yardley. You can find them online. You can find them on Instagram. You can find contact information. This is a valuable resource to have, especially if the thought of going to a therapist is terrifying for some. Group therapy might be a good solution. Also, it is free. And so as you're walking through the struggles of insurance or payment, this free resource can be very helpful to getting help right away. Then there is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It was mentioned to me before that this is only for people that are at risk of committing suicide. And so while this is a valuable number, this isn't the place that you go to find a therapist for the next step. This is a number that we should all have and we should all know, because in a crisis, there are trained people ready to help you and walk you through the next steps. The next one is a crisis text line. You text the word home to 741-741. This is a great resource especially for young people that aren't ready to speak, but would be comfortable texting and processing that way. There's also the Trevor Lifeline, which is specifically for LGBTQ youth and their needs. And so there's a phone number there. There's also the Trans Lifeline and the phone number there. This LGBTQ community is currently 4 times more likely to struggle with mental health challenges and to need mental health help. And so these numbers are vitally important. And again, all of these numbers, I hope that you will keep somewhere and have accessible when you need them. Lastly is to encourage self-help and other supportive strategies. For some of the struggles that teens and young people are going through, a therapist isn't the way to go. Group therapy isn't what they need. What they need is some activities or some structure around their day and around their lives. And so you can help them find safe, supportive, interesting activities to help them build social and familial ties, helping them understand what is good for their mental health and what drains their mental health is an important part of understanding mental health. The last thing that I want to share with you is something called the wellness wheel. This portion is about prevention. It's about prevention and normalizing the conversation. This wellness wheel is points 8 to 8 different areas of our lives that together, when balanced, make mental health, make a balanced mental health picture in your life. And so if you were to look at this and you look at physical health and you think, man, it's been a while since I have had any sort of physical activity, that's something that you can fix, right? So you know where you're struggling and where you are healthy. This is a great resource, a great thing to do as a family, for each member of your family to be able to sit down and just evaluate themselves. How healthy or how much are you struggling in each of these 8 areas? Another wonderful thing to do is to take this list and brainstorm people and programs and activities to support mental health in all of these areas, so that when you come to a point where you're struggling with spiritual mental health, you know who to go to or what to do to help you raise your mental health. And so this wheel is an important thing and a great resource because it continues the conversation. It helps us understand ourselves, our minds, and our hearts a lot better. And it gives us the words to say, my emotional health is just struggling right now. And without understanding the tools without understanding how we work, we don't have those words. And so this wellness wheel is a huge resource, in my opinion, for helping us speak better about our mental health and understand it. And then the other thing that I just wanted to share with you is a reminder that to pay attention to the message that you have in your home surrounding mental health. Evaluate the culture in your own home and the way that you all talk about mental health. Is it clear that you encourage honest conversation about how you are doing as a person? Have you made it clear that you value a professional, getting professional help when we need it? And are you leading by example? How is your wellness wheel? Are you caring for your own mental health the way that you need your kids and young people to? And then the last thing is, as a parent, it can be difficult to have these conversations with your kids. It can be difficult and it can be easy to decide not to. However, these are important conversations. A regular time to check in, to ask your young person, how are you doing? How is life going for you? These are vital conversations that we need to be having. And so to make it a little less awkward, I would encourage you to find times for natural conversation. It might be at the dinner table when you can be eating food. It might be in the car as you're driving to activities, to just have an open conversation. It feels a little bit more comfortable because you don't have to lock eyes with one another. You're staring at the road and you can just have a conversation together, and ask about how they're feeling and how everything is going for them. One of the families that I know of has this great tradition that they started when their kids became teenagers. They put a puzzle out in their living room. And every once in a while, they would just circle around the puzzle or just wander over to the puzzle and start working on it together. And as they were working on the puzzle, the parents would ask the kids questions. How is everything going? How do you feel? And when they are working on a puzzle, it gave the young person the comfort that they needed to be able to share without the awkwardness of of acknowledging the fact that they were sharing with their parent. And so whatever you can do, whatever works best for your family culture, create a space where you can have regular conversations about how you're doing, how they are doing. And the last advice that I have is to memorize some open-ended questions. Every parent knows that if you have gone to if you have asked your kid, how was school today? The answer that you're going to get most likely is fine. And that's the end of the conversation, because you have asked a closed question. They could get away with answering with one word. However, if you can find a way to answer questions like, what's the best thing that happened to you in school today? Or what was something that you struggled with today? Think about your day. Those questions encourage youth to think about their day, think about their feelings, and connect with them and give you the answers that you're looking for. And so you can look those up online. Several websites have open-ended questions to ask your kids. Those two are great ones, but there are so many more, and you can create your own. But I would encourage you to have some ready to go so that when these times of conversation happen, you are prepared. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and to participate. Parenting teenagers and young adults is a scary and difficult thing to do often. And while all of this information, I believe, is very important, I just want to remind you that the most important thing that you have and the most important tool that you have is the fact that you are in the life of this young person. You are a parent that loves your kid and would do anything to help them get through this time in life. And so you have the tools that you need. You have the words that you need. And even if it's not perfect, entering into this uncomfortable space is necessary and the most loving thing that you can do for your kids. Again, thank you so much for listening and for joining. And if I can help or listen or share any more resources, or if you have thoughts that you would like to share, I would love to continue this conversation with you. Thank you.